Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bright Connections. I'm your host, BK. Joining me, Miss Liz. Welcome back, Liz. How are you?
Hey, I'm fantastic.
Oh, fantastic. All right. All
Mm.
right. So we've had some big events, especially in Liz's life last couple, about a month or so now, but um, there was a wedding. There was a wedding that took place. So
Was.
today's episode is going to be about weddings and Liz's honeymoon trip and all kinds of fun stories about how great weddings are and all that good stuff. But before we get into that, I have a new addition to the podcast episodes. I acquired this book. It's called The Generosity Habit, and it has a bunch of nice inserts as to what we can do to better exemplify selflessness and compassion and generosity and all these good morals and these good values in their inserts, and they talk about stuff, and I want to read one every episode and we can talk about it with our guest at least a little bit, and just again remind us, just like we do almost every episode, how we can be a good person to others, how we can properly treat others with respect and be good people and do good things each and every day, and just be bright. Just be bright. So I found this book and I liked it, and so we're gonna start doing that.
Give it a try.
Give it a try. Give it a try. So I'm gonna randomly go to a page here. All right. First one: generosity is mindful. Generosity is mindful. Be aware of when someone else is in a hurry. Don't concern yourself with the reason. Just help them to get to where they're going a little bit faster. Let them in on the highway. Allow them to go in front of you in line. Help them gather the things they've dropped all over the floor. Simply be helpful getting them to wherever it is they need to go. I think we get that a lot in this day and age. People are always in a hurry. People are always trying to get somewhere fast. People are always running late. And being on the other side of that, it's not always easy to recognize. It's not always easy to say, I mean, it might be easy to recognize, but it's not always easy to accept.
Right. We don't know why.
We don't know why. And you know what? We don't need to know why. We don't need to know why. Some people might be in a hurry for one reason or another, but us being on the other side, take a step back, say, okay, it doesn't really matter that they're in a hurry. Let them go. Help them go. It might be important that they need to get somewhere quickly. And instead of complaining and getting upset that they cut us off in traffic, I know it's not the greatest thing. You don't want to be cut off in traffic, but at the same time, instead of getting upset, instead of yelling at them, instead of trying to get them back by racing back up to them and cutting them off or something, something like that, take a step back, just say, you know what? They're in a hurry. It is what it is. Let it be. And just kind of move on with your day and let them hopefully move on with their day. That's one example, is the driving thing. But, you could tell somebody in a grocery store, like it said, somebody in a grocery store, let them go first. Help them get out faster. You're not in a hurry, which, hopefully you're not too, because, it kind of defeats the purpose. But now, it just, is it really going to hurt to let them go in front of you?
Right. And I think that's the hardest part for us, is because we don't know, and we don't need to know that we're like, well, they don't need to, like, I can still go and I can, but, we don't know what's going on. We don't know the reason. And, maybe some reasons are more urgent than others.
Right.
But when you're not in a hurry. And it's interesting because and when we talk about the trip, if we have enough time, when I was over in Europe, it's a very different mindset. There is no rush, right? So it's very eye-opening. So like, it kind of makes you appreciate everything, and it's just like, all right, take a step back. Like, this person has one item in the grocery store line. You've got
50.
15.
50.
Mm-hmm. Let them go.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing yourself a favor. You're not doing them a favor. Like karma goes both ways, right? Karma goes both ways.
Yep.
So it is. It's a very, that was a very interesting opening generosity habit.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And like you said, with that one item versus 15 items, it's, if you think about it, you really think about it for just a second, instead of them waiting for you for 5 minutes to do your items, they can be done in 10 seconds. They're done. You're not waiting any longer other than less than a minute.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Right.
Let them go. You make their day a little bit better, because not many people would expect to be given that opportunity, given that chance, that generosity of being let in front of them. Just make their day. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to make your day better. And it's just the simplest action.
Absolutely.
Like, that's funny you mentioned that, other countries not in a hurry. I definitely believe that. Yeah, yes. I think us as Americans, we are in a hurry a lot, always looking to get everything done, and just always, there's so much on our plates. I know, yes. I know, honestly, I'll be honest, I usually have a lot on my plate too, and I'm always rushing in a way. I'll admit it. Sure. I am. And
I think that's like what our mentality has become, though.
Just always trying to get as much done as possible.
Yeah. Wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to no. Just kind of look abroad and see, they're this thriving, prosperous country. What are they doing or not doing?
Less stress.
Yes.
Just not worrying about so many things.
Yes. Yeah. It is. It's very interesting, though, how laid back and relaxed and not in a hurry they were. Now, like, listen, there's an exception to everything,
of course,
right? But like, generally speaking, there's no hurry.
Yeah.
But everybody's still on time. No hurry, still on time.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it was just, the areas that I was at. Yeah. Maybe it was just the areas that I was at. But like, the vibe I got was, there's no hurry. There's no rush.
They're enjoying
but you can
their
still
lives.
Be on time.
Yeah. Quality of life. Yes. A little bit higher every now.
A lot less stressful.
That sounds nice. That sounds nice. So, but yeah, so that's our first insert from the book. Right off the bat, good one. Good one.
Make sure you mark it off so you don't reread
take it. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. Just take a step back. You see somebody in a hurry, notice somebody in a hurry. Instead of getting angry, instead of getting annoyed, instead of getting upset, take a step back, accept it, or help them. Especially help them. Just help them get on their way. It's going to help them. It's going to help you. Nobody's going to be upset. Nobody's going to be angry. Nobody's going to be spiteful. It's just going to boost both parties.
Right.
Help both parties. So be accepting, and it's going to happen in life. You're going to be in a hurry. Just let it be. Let it be and help them out.
So what you do for somebody else could be done for you.
Yeah.
At some point in time.
Yep.
You never know.
Exactly. All right. Weddings. I've always been a big fan of weddings. I love going to weddings. I love being a part of weddings. I love love. I do. I love love. Simply put, I love seeing two people happy and just completely and utterly all about each other, and expressing that in the form of an event like a wedding is, to me, one of the greatest events in life. And I feel like it's supposed to be that way, because that's why, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of that, because it's meant to be one of the biggest events in your life. If you choose to get married, obviously,
Sure.
Not for everybody, and not everybody gets the chance to, or wants to. But for those that do get the chance, and oh, great. It's great. It's
not too bad.
it's okay. It's all right. Yeah, it's all right. Now I know obviously there's a difference in that opinion though. Some people don't want it to be a huge deal, a huge party, a huge event. Some people just want the simple thing. Just let's go to the courthouse, let's get married, just the two of us, and let it be. And that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's why it's another one of those things in life where there's a difference between what people want, and there's no way that's better than the other.
I say there's no right or wrong way.
There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong.
Nope. Mm-hmm. Nope. So I know Liz is on the one end, a little bit on the one end, and I'm on the other end. right then and there between guest and host, there's a difference, and neither one's right. Neither one's right. So
yeah.
So I mean, there's all different types of weddings. There's all different everything. You can have, like I said, huge wedding, little wedding. You have cowboy wedding. You could have city wedding. You could have party wedding. You know, there's just a bunch of music and dancing and everything. You could have a calm wedding. Just so many different types. There's so many different ways to do it, and
everything in between.
Everything in between. Everything in between. You could have a traditional wedding, or you have mother-son dance, father-daughter dance. You could have cake face smearing. You could have one of my buddies had like almost like a Viking themed wedding in a way. Well, he really just had like a Viking cup. It wasn't that much, but still, you know, you add your own spice to it.
You do.
So it's just
it's your day. It's your day. You make it what you want.
Make it what you want. Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
You as the individual, not everybody else, because that's where everything gets lost.
That's
where everything gets lost. It's what you and the other person want.
Yeah.
Not what everybody else wants.
Yep. Because there's always going to be, I feel like, especially the mother of the groom always has her thoughts on what they want it to be, and you're just like, no.
I don't know if it's the groom as much as it is the bride, the mother of the bride.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure like it would depend on the situation. Yeah. And it also depends on the person.
Yeah.
Right? Because mine was totally like mother of the bride. Which, I mean, for you shouldn't even be surprised.
No.
But like, you know, Brendan's mom had her ideas and her input, but you know, it like we took everything, right? And we laid it out, and this is what we want. This is, you know, a little off topic for us, you know, so we were very open-minded to a lot of it, you know. Did, you know, push come to shove, did moms get some things? Yeah, absolutely. But you want to keep everybody happy, right? You don't like, you don't want it to be an unpleasant experience because of silly little things.
Yeah. Right.
So yes, you're gonna give moms some wiggle room.
We'll do this one thing for mom so that she's happy.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal for us. So
correct. Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah. So as I kind of mentioned, Liz was on one end of the spectrum as opposed to what I would be. Liz, you had kind of a smaller, more private wedding. You want to kind of share what you did on your day?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, right, when you grow up, at least like for me, like you see weddings, like I have two older brothers, right? Yeah. Did the works. Okay. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like I want this because like I was late middle school to like early high school when they both got married, because they're 10 and 11 years older than I am. I'm like, this is really cool. And then like, as you get older and you see things and like you're involved in weddings, you're just kind of like, maybe that's not for me. And like, here's the thing. it's not for me, but that doesn't mean it can't be for somebody else.
Yep.
So that being said, a little later in life, right? The time comes and, finally have the marriage talk and like, all right, this is a thing, like it's happening. Mm-hmm. Because when everything happens, I don't know that anybody ever truly processes it. Like, oh my God, this is happening.
Yeah. So it sets in. Takes a little while. And
then you're like, oh, like I have to plan this. Mm. And I'm like, okay, what do I want? What does Brendan want? Mm. And I think because of our personalities, because we are generally speaking pretty laid back people, and I do not like being the center of attention. I do not like being the center of attention. Mm-mm. So like all of your traditional things, your dances, your songs, your cake, like, not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea. But again, that doesn't mean that like, you can't still do it. But I also think that there's kind of a stigma on traditional weddings and like, well, this is what mom and dad did, and this is what your brothers or your sisters did, and like you need to do it. And like, I'm not that kind of person. Like, it's not what I wanted, so I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
My brothers wanted it, they did it. Right. So cool. But like for us, it was, not being the center of attention, not wanting everything. So for us, we still got married in the church. We just did the ceremony.
Yep.
And it was just immediate family. So, my mom, my brothers, sisters-in-law, and like nephews, right? Now for Brendan, it's a little bit different. Being an only child, he grew up with cousins that were, that are equivalent to siblings.
Right.
So his two cousins, best men, their sister, wives, kids, essentially the same setup,
still
on my
side.
Closest
family members.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there were a couple family members that are like, hey, like we understand that it's private, but do you mind if we still come? And it's like, absolutely. It's not that we're...
Had I known that.
It's not that we like didn't want you there, but we're trying to
really keep it as small as possible.
Yeah. And like to be fair, I think there were only like 3 extra people.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things like it's not that we didn't want people there.
Right.
But because of how we did it
you made the decision to...
Yeah, it almost didn't make sense to have everybody come to the ceremony because we did it over 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. So again, this non-traditional idea that we're having the ceremony on a Friday, but the reception is the next day. So it's not all back to back.
Why the air quotes?
Reception. Because when we planned it, we're like, it's not a reception, it's just a picnic.
It's just
a party.
Yeah.
Like, again, as non-traditional as you can like think.
Yeah.
But
it was very cool, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks. But so we kind of did Friday backwards too, because we didn't have like a rehearsal dinner. Like the 5 of us did a very quick walkthrough Friday morning before the ceremony.
Oh my gosh.
10 o'clock.
Talk about laid back. Liz mentioned the word laid back, guys. She wasn't joking.
Right? 10 o'clock Friday morning, we do our walkthrough to make sure everybody knows where they are and what they're doing.
Yep.
3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3:30 in the afternoon. Right? Our ceremony, we're out of there by 4. Like, again, very simple, very laid back, everything that we wanted.
Yep.
And then, the family that was there, we had them go back to my mom's house for pizza and wings.
Right.
So like, the dinner came after like the actual ceremony, not after like the rehearsal.
Yeah.
So, a little bit out of order, in an order, if you will. But Saturday, was what we considered to be the reception, which is when we invited all of the family and all of the friends. And, again, we had to keep that number limited as well, because we were fortunate enough that Brendan's parents allowed us to have it at their house. So, keeping in mind, you don't want 300 people at a house.
Yeah.
It's not that we couldn't have invited 300 people, but
yeah,
we wanted the close family, the close friends to share in this. And, we would reach out to and get together with those people that we couldn't, and, go to dinner, get some drinks, whatever the case may be, afterwards. So, we were probably at like 120 people or so, but I mean, like, super laid back, right? His parents, very helpful in, the organizing and the planning, and, helping like pick up the food and whatnot. But I mean, like Friday, right? Ceremony. It was a white summer dress, right? And bright yellow Converse. Okay. Like, that's where I'm at.
Yep.
Okay. No gowns, no heels, no veils, no glitter, like nothing. Saturday, bright yellow romper, sandal, like 100% comfy. And like, that's what we told people, like, think picnic.
Yeah.
You want to wear a summer dress? Great. You want to wear shorts and a t-shirt? Awesome. Like, we don't care.
Yeah. Just
be there.
Being there. Yep. Exactly.
Just be there.
Yep.
Enjoy the food, enjoy the drinks, the yard games, whatever. Just be there. Like,
Art
we
games.
were more concerned about who was there than what you were wearing.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was very non-traditional, in the sense of what a wedding is. And again, with us having the personalities that we do, it couldn't have gone any better. Honestly, it really couldn't have. But then, like this weekend, I'm going to Tara's wedding. Tara's getting married this weekend.
Yep.
And she is total 180 from me, like the works. And I love her for it. Like, I will support you. I will be there. Not what I wanted for me.
Yeah.
But this is what you want. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
I will 100% participate and do what you need me to do.
Will you 100% participate though? Are you going to dance?
That's debatable.
That part's a little questionable still.
Okay, maybe like 99.9%.
She's gonna make you, right?
She didn't mind.
Yeah. Wow.
She didn't mind. So, but like,
did it hurt that much to do one little dance?
It did not.
Okay.
No, it didn't. But again, like, even for us, like, the music aspect of it, like, his parents have speakers throughout, the grounds, and we just created a Spotify playlist, and it just played all day, all night. Tara having a DJ, and, we're going to say a band, but not a band, like a DJ.
Mm-hmm.
And, doing the dances and stuff. And again, like, that's fine. That's awesome. Good for her.
Yep.
Like, she's getting what she wants.
Yep.
And that's where I think the individuality and like the personality of the couple comes out in what you want.
Yeah.
Because you can have a super elegant, super tasteful, like, traditional wedding, and that's awesome. And you can do what I did, and I like to think that what we did was fun and tasteful and elegant in its own way, like, and it was still okay.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of options. There's no right or wrong, and it's what you and your partner want. It's simply put, is what you and your partner want.
Yep.
Anything that anybody else tells you that you need to do is what they want.
Yeah.
And
they can do it at their own.
Right. And I mean, here's the thing. We got that. I mean, like I said,
got input, and you can take some of the. Yeah.
Sure. We can tweak it to make it a little bit more manageable. But at the end of the day, if you are happy with how things went, then there's no regrets. There's no, what if we did this?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, and, it never crossed our minds afterwards. So, I know there's a lot of negativity sometimes when it comes to weddings and plannings and like stress and stuff. But the biggest thing that I would tell people is like, you've got to do it for you.
Yeah.
And you and your partner only, because once you start letting other people take over, it's not going to be what you want.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be that day that you envision.
It's not going to show as much of who you are.
Yes.
And, the day that you want, it's more of, like you said, what other people want. So.
Yes. Yeah. And, like I said, there's no reason that you can't add some things here and there, keep some people happy. But, generally speaking, you do what you want, not what everybody else wants.
Mm-hmm.
And, my mom's like, you should do this. Nope. Sorry. Not what I want.
Yeah.
And I think with me being the last of the family, and with me being the only girl, and with me being as stubborn and bullheaded as I am, like she kind of like picked up on it pretty quickly that like, okay,
she's going to do it her way. I need to accept
yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm just going to have to kind of be okay with it. And, we got some input from my mom. We let my mom have the bridal shower at her house, and, we gave her those things.
Yeah.
So, ultimately I think she was okay with it. As different as it was for her from the other three.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it all worked out. Everybody was happy. I don't know, unless it was behind my back of any complaints or, critiques for that matter. But like, it's come, it's gone. And like, we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you get there to the reception, and once you realize what kind of atmosphere and what kind of setting it is, you just accept it. And there was no, for me, for sure, at least, there was no, oh, this isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to be. It was more, this is how they want it to be. This is awesome. I loved it. I loved the lawn games that we had, and the food, and just the setting. It was very relaxed and very just party, just kind of everybody meet, everybody have a good time and celebrate their special day. And it was perfect.
Thanks.
It was.
We were kind of hoping that, it went the way we had envisioned it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was a great time. I enjoyed it, and it was just one of those events where once you get there, you accept what it is, and you just enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the other thing, like, hearing it from you and hearing it from people, because we got a couple of text messages, like, hey, like, what's the dress code? Like, what should I wear? And it's like, think picnic.
Might have been one of those people.
Yeah, you were one. Like, think picnic, like laid back, casual, like, and the amount of people that were like, I really like the way you think, like, this is nice. It's very informal. And that's kind of what we were going for. Again, because, I think sometimes when you have that ceremony and you have the pictures in between and you go right into the reception, it's almost like a blur. Like, I know I've talked to, different people that are like, I don't even remember what happened that day.
Well, was it because it was too quick, or was it because a little too,
I mean, maybe a
little bit of both. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But I also know, like, I've talked to people who are like, I didn't get to eat because
you're running around welcoming everybody, and
there's a certain time frame, and it's almost like when you have too much planned.
True.
Because you stick to, every tradition possible. Yeah. Do you remember it? Do you actually truly get to experience it? Or is it kind of like going through the motions? So for us, the whole non-traditional side of things, with the picnic, we wanted to be able to hang out with everybody and like really enjoy everybody's company and not just say, hi, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Right. So, hey, we'll have a drink with you. Like we'll go play yard games with you, or like sit down and eat with us. And, so the idea was very laid back, very informal, very non-traditional. And like I said, it's not for everybody, it's for some, but it's what you want. It's what you and your partner want. Hands down, simple answer.
Yeah. Exactly. There's multiple ways to do it, and it's okay, whatever way you want to do it, go for it.
Yeah.
For me, I'll probably, my future wife, I'd probably, hopefully, if she agrees, towards the more traditional, towards the bigger party kind of scene, and lots of dancing, because I like dancing. So plenty of dancing and music, and maybe a couple other special things that I don't want to give away.
All right. Just have to wait for the day.
Just have to wait for the day.
Right. Okay. And fair.
So it is what it is. And you make it, like you said, multiple times. You just make it the day you want it to be. And it's so. Yeah. Now, last question though. Do you think the pandemic itself, do you think that swayed the kind of way that you want to do it, or was it going to be the same no matter what?
I think it was going to be the same no matter what, to be fair. Because again, like our personalities, laid back, very relaxed, like not wanting to be the center of attention. But just like, the pandemic affected everybody, everything. Mm-hmm. So, prices increased. And like me personally, I'm just like, I can't wrap my head around spending X amount of money on this, or this for 8 hours. You know what I mean? And again, like some people are all about that, and like, good for you. Like, I have nothing against that. That is just not me. Right. That is just not me. And then, like I said, with COVID and price increases, it just made it that much harder to really be like, I want that. Like, I want to spend that much money on that, or the other thing.
Yeah.
So no, I genuinely think, regardless of COVID, that it would have been the same way.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And then the pandemic didn't affect the way you wanted it to be. And that's perfect. That's good.
No. Yeah. And that's the thing too, because that did affect some people, because, wedding plan for, when during COVID 2020 couldn't have what they wanted. Right. So they did something smaller to, still have the ceremony and the family and the friends, and some people postponed and they waited and they pushed it back. And, again, it's all personal preference. Like, what do you want to do?
Right.
Do you want to be married on this particular day, this particular year? Is there a reason for it? Because some people have that reason.
Right.
Or are you okay with waiting an extra year or two?
Right. Right. And there's even probably some that wanted to have more traditional in a inside venue and switch it to an outside venue.
Yeah.
For COVID reasons. Yeah. So it changed things, but I think you were still able to adapt enough to make the day special enough. So
sure. Absolutely.
I think,
absolutely. But for us, I think it would have been the same regardless.
Yeah. I believe it. All right. Well, that was Liz's day. It was exactly how she wanted it to be, and it was a great day. And that's what weddings are all about: making it your day, finding that connection with somebody, and just locking it in, baby. Locking it in.
You're stuck with me now.
You're stuck. Yep. Exactly. So as we move forward then, after the wedding now, Liz had one heck of a trip. One heck of a trip after her wedding. Lots of different places, lots of different experiences. I honestly don't know anything of this yet, so I'm very excited to hear some of her stories of where she went, what she did. So Liz, take it away. You had one heck of a honeymoon. I want to hear all about it.
All right. So funny enough, this was planned pre-engagement. So last year we got into the national parks and we went out west and we did, Southern California and Utah.
And we heard those stories on the prior episode and they were awesome.
Yes. So, last January, even last fall, we started talking about like, where do we want to go next? And it was more of like, what are the harder to get to parks, right? Essentially the farthest ones away. So you're looking at Alaska, you're looking at Hawaii, American Samoa, as being some of your harder parks to get to. So we decided on Alaska. And, we started planning, we were looking at the parks and what we wanted to do. And then July rolled around and we got engaged. So we talked about it and we're like, let's just make this our honeymoon. So we did. So we did the planning. And when I say we, I mean Brenton, because Brenton does the majority of the planning. He does the research. Okay. I will 100% give credit where credit is due. Like, hey, let's do this at this park. All right, great. Sounds awesome. Like, I'm just along for the ride.
Yep.
So, we look at what logistically makes sense. So for Alaska, we did drive. We drove from Pittsburgh to Fairbanks to Anchorage and the surrounding areas.
No way it was a one-day drive, right?
It was definitely not. No. Yeah. We did it over 6, actually. It's
6 days?
Yes, it's 67. It's 67 hours straight through. Yes, but on the way up, we actually stopped in Canada at some of their parks too.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it was 6 days out. But again, we look at logistically what makes sense. So there are 8 national parks in Alaska. We went to 5 of them.
Wow. Okay.
Because the 3 that we did not get to, which was Kobuk Valley, Gates of the Arctic, and Glacier Bay, they're all kind of like outliers. They're just too far to get to in the amount of time that we had. Okay. So it didn't make sense for us to try and get to them. Yeah. So we did the 5 that are pretty strategically located around the city of Anchorage, which was Denali, Katmai, Lake Clark, Kenai Fords, and Wrangell St. Elias. So those were the 5 that we did. But like I said, we drove up through Canada and we stopped at Banff National Park in Canada and Jasper National Park in Canada. So, we spent, I think it was like 3 days between the 2 parks. And we did some hikes and it was incredible. I mean, Canada, like as similar as Canada is to the US, it is still very different. Like even their national parks and like their hikes are very different. Because you're up in the mountain ranges, right? So you've got glacier water and the lakes are just blue, like pure blue, like your shirt blue, right? Yes. Nice. Yes. Like the pictures I could show you, you would just be like, no, those are fake. And I'd be like, no, those are real. Like, I promise.
I touched that water.
I did, like, I promise.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just don't have any words for it. And like pictures just don't do it justice. We're in Banff and they have this super cute little main street with shops and restaurants and cafes, whatever. And we're sitting there having breakfast one morning and outside and, Brendan takes a picture of me and there's just this big like mountain in the background.
Awesome.
Like, yeah, like that's what you're looking at, sitting in your little cafe outside. So yeah, like we've already talked about like going back up to Canada for the parks up there to spend a little bit more time up there. But we did continue up through Canada. We went through 4 of their provinces. We did take the Alcan Highway, the Alaska Highway. We took about half of it on the way up.
Okay.
And the Alcan is known for being constructed during the World War II, I think it was World War II, between Canada and the US. I have to double check.
You would be the one that would know that.
I know. And I'm like 90% sure. I think it was World War II.
Okay.
And the strips of road, right? They're built as runways for planes.
Oh.
Canada helped construct it, the US helped construct it, and it connected. The idea was to connect Alaska to the contiguous 48 states. And obviously you have to go through Canada. So, this highway is built with cooperation from tons of people, groups of people, to connect Alaska to the 48. And it was very interesting because in the later years, and even to this day, like when you talk to people, they're like, oh, you're taking the Alcan, like make sure you have like 4 spare tires. It's like, what do you like it's really rough road. Like,
oh, wow.
It can't be that bad, right? Okay. I had a friend, like they got a flat tire and then they drove X amount of miles and got a second flat. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Oh my God, like, do I like, and this is the only way into Alaska, like driving. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing? What's going to happen? I think some people, maybe exaggerate a little bit because the majority of the highway was a normal, well-maintained road.
Okay. That
being said, when you get into the Yukon, it's like the last 2 hours in Canada and crossing into the US, into Alaska. It's a little rough. It's a little rough. There's a lot of frost heaves, bumps. There's some washboard areas. There's some potholes that are pretty big, like
crater like
car swallowing big.
Oh my gosh.
But for the short amount of time that we were on that, I could totally understand like getting a flat tire. I think one of the advantages that we had was we had a Jeep, right? And we have these all-terrain tires and suspensions and whatever that Jeeps are designed to handle. And that being said, there's you can never predict that you're going to get a flat tire regardless of your car.
Right.
But we did come to find out that we did a little bit of research afterwards with the Alcan highway, is that when it was constructed, because it was the United States idea to connect Alaska to the 48, right, even though it had to go through Canada, the idea was that the United States would update all of the roads. Okay.
And that's why it's failing to be done.
Even through Canada, right? The US would update the roads even through Canada, but then Canada agreed to maintain the roads in Canada. Problem is the United States never updated that section in the Yukon. So Canada can't maintain it yet. So there's actually still talk of like getting money to update that particular section and any other remaining section or portion or areas that need updated, for Canada to maintain. So it's very interesting that like that's still a thing. That's still a topic of discussion like today.
Right.
But yeah, so the US never updated that section, which means Canada can never maintain it.
Right.
So they're like, where's the money to update it?
Yeah. Oh boy.
But no, so we got into Alaska and it was great. I mean, and like, here's the thing. So we drove and we stayed in a hotel or an Airbnb, I think a total of like 4 nights. And mind you, we left on the evening of July 3rd and we got back on the 28th of July. So like 6 days up and then 4 days back. So of that, 4 were in a hotel or an Airbnb, and then 3 nights we were ground camping, like in a tent on the ground. Okay. So 7, like a week. Yeah. Out of that whole month, we're in a tent on the ground or we're in a hotel. The remainder of that, we were in our rooftop tent on the Jeep. So like that was actually really fun, really cool, because when we went out west, we spent more time in hotels and like the experience was great, but it was different. Mm-hmm. Right. So we spent the majority of this trip like in the rooftop tent. To the point where, you find state parks, or if you're in Canada, provincial parks, and you just, you pull off the road for the night and you're like, we're gonna camp here. Like most of the trip was planned, right? We knew where we were stopping.
You guys are prepared for the apocalypse.
Yeah. Not quite. But, there were some days where, we drove a little bit farther or a little less than what we had planned. So we had to kind of, improvise and find these places to stay. But when we got up into Alaska, we went straight into Denali National Park. And Denali is known for the mountain, which we did not get to see. Alaska, the weather can change at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
We went to various like local establishments, restaurants, bars, whatever. And a lot of the locals are like 2 days ago. And for the last like month, it's been like 75 and sunny. And then we get there and it's like, just kidding. It's going to be rain and 65. So we dealt with rain and overcast weather for the majority of our trip. Yeah. But it also put things into a totally different perspective. So, we're at Denali, the typical tourist thing is to see the mountain, right? We didn't get to see the mountain. Yeah. Sure, we're bummed. But we saw the landscape, we saw the wildlife. We didn't get to experience a lot of the park because actually right before we left, there was a major landslide and it actually took out part of the road. So you can only get about halfway into the park to like mile 41, 43, I think.
Okay. And
it goes like 90 miles. So, and people tell you that, the better places in the park are deeper into the park. So, again, something out of our control, we can't do anything about it. So you make do with what you've got. And we did. We took the bus tour that takes you in the park and out of the park. We rode bikes. We rented bikes and we rode bikes. It had just rained. So, yep, covered head to toe, speckled, new freckles.
Look at these newfound freckles that I just acquired.
Oh, look, I can wipe them off. Yeah, but it was those experiences, that made the trip. Like
it's something that you remember. It's something that made it. Yeah.
We didn't get to see the mountain. Yes, it was a bummer, but like it also gives us a reason to go back. There
you go. Yeah.
The wildlife was crazy.
Yeah.
We actually saw more. We saw bears in Canada. So we saw black bears, grizzly bears, and brown bears in Canada, like right alongside the road.
Wow.
Outside of like the parks, we didn't see any wildlife. It was very interesting. It was very intriguing as to why, but like at the park. So like at Denali, we saw moose. We saw bull moose. I was so excited to see a bull moose.
Yeah,
I was like, cool. I just want to see it.
I want to see a big moose.
Yes. The female moose were like right along the road, right? They're just munching and gnawing on the vegetation. The bull moose that we saw there, he was off the road a little bit, but like facing the road. And I'm like, oh my God, stop the car. And he's like, what? I'm like, there's a bull moose. Like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm like, back up slowly. How did you even see it? Because I wanted to see it. I wanted to find it, and I found it.
I'm on the prowl for it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I mean, it's massive, right? Like the antlers, and like he's just staring at us. And okay, like I took my picture, and like you go, because you don't mess around. Yeah. Like you stop for a picture and you go, right? You don't get out of your car, because moose are nasty. Like they can be really nasty if you
agitate them.
Yeah. Yes, agitate them, antagonize them. Yes. Bears, obviously, same thing. But you stop, you take a picture, you take it in, it's a 10 to 20 second thing, and then you go.
Yeah.
Right. So Denali was fun. We saw a lot of moose, a lot of female moose or bull moose. We did the bike ride. We did some hikes, some little hikes though in Denali again, because most of the bigger well-known hikes are farther in. Anchorage became our home base between the parks. So then we went to Anchorage, kind of explored for a little bit. And then we went to Katmai National Park, and Katmai is known for its salmon runs in July and September. So like if you see a commercial and you see, all of these bears on the falls and they're like catching the salmon swimming upstream, there's a really good chance that that's like at Katmai National Park. Now Katmai, you cannot drive to. You have to take a float plane or a water taxi to get to the national park. So what that means is we had to fly from Anchorage to a town called King Salmon. And King Salmon, we stayed at a little place. They had cabins, they had campsites. The most adorable old lady, Margot, like literally everybody's grandma, the sweetest. Oh my God, she would do anything and everything for you. Like if you go up to Katmai, like stay at Bear Trails. Like that's my promotion for Margot.
Yeah.
So we had to fly into King Salmon, and we opted for the water taxi because different reviews and research that we did said that the water taxi is the better option because of the unknown weather. Yeah. And we're really glad that we did, because that particular morning when we left, the float planes were all pushed back. We met a gentleman at Bear Trails who was going to Katmai the same day as us, but he took a float plane. He took a float plane at 7 a.m. and he did not get out of there until like 1 p.m. He did not get to the national park because of the heavy fog and the clouds, because the float planes, they couldn't fly.
Yeah.
Now the water taxis actually got delayed as well.
Wow.
So everybody was pushed back about 2 hours. So we were supposed to go at 9. We got there at 11. To the point where they had to cancel the 11 o'clock reservations so they could get back on track. And as unfortunate as it is, like it's non-refundable. You can't, make a request, whatever, this, that, the other thing. But like that's their way of life up there. Yeah. So like King Salmon, totally different, like not an environment, but like, in King Salmon, there's 2 restaurants, right? Their way of life is fishing, is the salmon, the canneries, taking the salmon. People are like, oh my gosh, like, how was the salmon? Like, did you get it? No, it's like nearly impossible to find salmon at the restaurants because all of the salmon that they catch, they export. So again, their way of life. Yeah. There were 90 million salmon that spawned this year. When we were up there, they had harvested about 50 million and we're still harvesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not to say that you can't get salmon, but it's very hard. And if you do, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
So it's their way of life. It's not, desolate is not the right word. But it's very limited as to what you can and cannot do. Like if you are not involved in, these campgrounds or these cabin grounds, for the national park, you're working in the cannery with the salmon runs and stuff. So anyway, we get to, we're delayed. We're 2 hours. We get to the park and you have to take a bear safety training. You have to watch a video. Yeah, you have to watch a video.
Oh my gosh.
Because this park, like you're literally in these bears environment, their home.
Yeah.
So you take this bear training, you talk to the rangers, right? You get this cute little pin that's designed every year by like a student that says, yes, I took my bear training. And then, you know, you go. So Katmai is known for its observation platforms at the falls and a little bit lower down the river. Mm-hmm. Like I said, at the falls is where you see the bears trying to catch the salmon. Mm-hmm. You know, they're standing on top of the falls, they're down below the falls in like the hot tub area, as they call it. You see a lot of them downriver. And it was just like the bears couldn't have cared less that there were people there, because they were so focused, like tunnel vision. I need to eat. Yeah. Right. I need to build up for hibernation this winter. Mm-hmm. To the point where, like, you know, there's a group of maybe like 10 people in front of us, and we're maybe like 20 yards behind them. And this bear is walking down the trail towards them. And this bear is on all fours, and it is still taller than me. And I'm 5'5". So like, this is a big bear mm-hmm. walking towards this group, towards us. And they tell you, you know, just talk louder, sing, you know, if it continues to walk towards you, like get off the trail, start walking backwards, don't run. Right. Whatever you do, don't run. Right. But the group started talking, and it just did like a total 90-degree turn and walked up into the woods, and couldn't have cared less that we were even there. Yeah. We were on the platforms. You know, we probably saw 10 to 12 bears out in the falls in the river, mm-hmm. just catching fish, ripping them apart, eating them. Like, yeah. And you're on these platforms, and, you know, there's bears just walking down below you. Wow. You're like 10 feet above them. And it's like, oh my gosh, like there's a bear right there. Yeah. Yeah. But like I said, they didn't have a care in the world that you were there. You know, they tell you, you know, when you're on these platforms, you know, keep walking, take a picture, stop, take a picture, keep walking. You know, do not infringe on their way of life. Do not change your habits that affect their habits, kind of thing. Yeah. So, you know, you get X amount of time on the platform, and then, you know, you have to sign up, and they call your name, and it's very organized for, you know, as popular as it is. But they had said that the night before, when we were there was probably about 30 bears at the falls. And I'm just like, I can't even imagine seeing that many bears. No. You know, like we saw 10 to 15 or 12 to 15. And I'm like, that's still, that would still be a ton. Yeah. Right. I'm like, holy crap. And like the crazy part was, we saw more bears, like, because we only went for the day because of our time frame. And they have these bridges, these walks over the river. There are bears swimming underneath it, catching like the floating, like the essentially like the floating dead salmon. There's marshy areas, and you just see all these bears like walking out of the marshy areas and just swimming. You can fish in the river, and there are people fishing in the river. And it's just like, you see these people like walking through the river, and then like you just see a bear, and it's like there's a like you're like trying to warn them. You're like, hey, bear, hey, there's a bear. Yeah. Like, keep walking, right? Yeah. But again, like the fishermen were very aware, and the bears were aware. But like I said, like they didn't care. They were more worried about eating than being involved with us. Yeah. And I think people are very respectful in this particular situation, that they know that we are in their home. Yeah. Right. It's not like they are in our home, so to speak. Like, this is just natural bear life. Yeah. So it was very cool. And like I said, some of the size of these bears, I can't even begin to describe. Right. They were just massive. Yeah. And then, you know, there's a couple moms with a couple cubs. and they're so little, and like you just want to watch them play.
Yeah.
But like they're following mom, and they're learning from her. So yeah, that was fun. That was probably my favorite park.
The bear experiences.
It was absolutely incredible. But then so we had to taxi back, and then we flew out of King Salmon back to Anchorage. And we went to Lake Clark. Now, Lake Clark is also a park that you have to fly to. Okay. You cannot drive to it. I've never been on a very small plane before. This plane held 6 people. Mm-hmm. This was apparently the luxury plane of the group, right? Like they were leather seats, like they were facing each other, right? You had nice little cup holders, but it was still like 6 people. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, this is totally happening. I'm not sure how I feel about this. And like, it's only an hour flight. So it's like, in reality, it's not that long, but like, it's a propeller plane. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, it's a propeller plane. But no, everything was fine. We went up, we were above the clouds in that one. That one's, I would say, a smaller version of your like commercial, like there's cabin pressure and things involved with that. But we get there, we land, we land on a gravel runway. And yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. So Port Allsworth is owned by a family. So this particular airstrip is owned by the family. They do not obviously own the national park, right? But basically, to get to the national park, you're going through like their airline. Yeah. You're going through their company, or you're going through the other company that's essentially the other runway, right? Yeah. Like that's it. There's 2 of them. So we camped one night. You have to, right? Because you can't drive. So we had to take our tent and camp, which was it's nothing that we hadn't experienced before, but you're in bear country. Oh yeah. Right. And you have to be aware of that. You take bear spray with you everywhere you go. So, we found our campsite, and it's along the lake, and it's great. And we're walking, and there's, a couple days old, what we safely assumed to be bear vomit, because it's red, it's pink, and it's berries, right? So we're like, oh, all right, something's been around here at least a couple days, because you like, not to be gross or gross anybody out, but like you could tell it was kind of dried up. And yeah, okay. So we camped, and we're only there one night. This is kind of weird, and like we were the only people, right? Thankfully, a little bit farther down the trail, there was a group that did camp. So it was like a 10-minute walk between the 2 sites. But we do our thing. We did a little bit of a trail, and came back, because to get to the summit of the one trail, it was like 4 hours, and it was long. Yeah. But we camped out that night, and we woke up in the morning, and we're packing up, and we're ready to go, and we're walking back, and like 50 yards, give or take, from our campsite is fresh bear vomit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at some point throughout the night, there was a bear that walked. There was one right there. Yep. Yep. I mean, we never heard it. It never woke us up, but it was along the trail. So like, it was there. Yep. I'm like, had that been fresh before we went to bed, I would not have been staying there. Nope. Nope. But yeah. I mean, that was very interesting. Yeah. To just think that like, oh my God, like a bear walked through here. Yeah. Because I don't know if other people are used to that kind of deal, just being around bears, but I know and that's the big thing, because when you go to places like that, you have to understand that like this is their home. Yeah. And I think, like, you know, in reality, they were probably more afraid of our tent because they didn't know what it was and they didn't want to be bothered, you know, but like, if you have any kind of bear encounter, you have to know what to do, right? Even if it's just, you know, making yourself big and just yelling at it to scare it. Or, you know, in the case of Katma, you just got to start talking louder, start singing, let the bear know you're there, and you know, it is totally uninterested. But yeah, so that was our camping experience.
Wow.
There were some pretty cool waterfalls that we went to along the way at the lake. And then we were fortunate, we were able to stay at one of the cabins the second night. And that was very cool too, because again, it's run by this family, like this is their livelihood. This is what they do. But like breakfast and dinner is, you know, included, you know, when you book through this company, breakfast and dinner, it's everybody that's staying there all eats together. Like there's no stores, there's no grocery stores, there's no convenience store, like everything is flown in. So, you know, you meet a lot of people. And it's so cool because you hear the stories and the experiences of these other people and where they've been, and like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it was really cool to hear their experiences and their stories and where they've been. And interestingly, like, you know, it's a lot of older, you know, couples or individuals who are retired and have the time and have taken up, you know, amateur photography. Like that was the big thing that we ran into with people, is, you know, they were up there for photography. So it was really cool. But yeah, so like I said, breakfast and dinner were all together. They gave you like brown bag lunches, like if you went on like day excursions and things like that. And it was a very different experience, you know, for this park. But flying back was even more adventurous because it was another small plane that had held 6 people. But this plane didn't go above like 1,100 feet, which was cool because you were still below the cloud line. So like we were literally flying in the valley of these mountain ranges on our left and our right. And like there's glaciers everywhere, like everywhere.
That's awesome.
But you also felt every single little like
tiny little bump.
Oh my gosh. I can't like like I know turbulence is normal, but man, it does not feel good in these little
no, I can imagine.
Does not feel good.
Our
luggage was totally like behind me, just strapped down with bungee cords. I was like, this is awesome. Great. So yeah. It was really cool though. Again, you know, an hour flight felt like forever just because, you know, every little
kind of worried the whole time.
But yeah, I mean, just flying in the valleys and seeing the mountains and the glaciers and, you know, the rivers and the waterfalls, like descriptions and pictures don't do it justice. But after Lake Clark was Kenai, Kenai Fords, and that one you could drive to.
Thankfully, at that point, you were a little happy, probably.
You could drive to that one. That was really cool because we did a hike, and it's called the Harding Icefield hike. And I absolutely hated the hike because it's 3 feet of elevation, like straight up. So your elevation change is happening very quickly. But it takes you like 3 hours to do because of the elevation change. And I say I hated the hike strictly because I'm old and out of shape and
Okay.
want to walk. But like along the way, like gorgeous. Like you're walking along the one glacier, exit glacier. But the idea of this hike is you get up above the glacier and you are looking at the ice field, like just this abyss, right? You cannot see where it ends. It's just snow and ice, and it's freezing.
Yeah.
Like we're down at the bottom and it's, like 70 degrees. It probably easily dropped 20, 25 degrees. And the wind unbearable. Like the closer you got to the ice field, the windier it got.
Yeah.
But like, it's like there's no words to describe what, like I said, you're looking at this abyss of ice, of snow, and you have no idea where it ends.
Yeah.
You can obviously see to your one side, like here's the glacier. We know it goes down into the valley. But straight out and to the right,
No idea.
Never ending.
Yeah. Wow. It's almost like something out of a movie.
Yeah. It really was.
Yep.
So, as much as I like hated the hike, like it was so worth it in the end.
Yeah.
But it's a good 3 hours each way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because, of that elevation change. But the crazy part, I think, of it all was, so we did that when we first got there. And then we had signed up to do a kayak tour.
Okay.
Of Ayalik Glacier.
On top of ice? We're going to kayak?
No. You're in the water, but you're in glacier water.
Yeah.
So, but you're also like, it's part glacier water, like part ocean. So it's a boat tour essentially to get you out to your kayak launch. So it's like a 2-hour boat ride, and it's a tour that takes you out of the one bay, around the peninsula, essentially to the open ocean, and then back into another bay. And there's all kinds of animals. We saw tons of puffins, and they are like the funniest little birds ever.
Never even heard of it.
You've never heard of a puffin?
No.
What?
What?
Look it up.
Look it up.
All right. Look it up. So we saw puffins, and they are, like I said, the funniest little birds. They fly, but like it's like a really
awkward fly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when they land in the water, they like skim it and like into the water. Yeah. So we saw puffins, we saw seals on the way out. We think we saw a Dall sheep, but it was so far away.
A Dall sheep?
Yeah, Dall. Dall sheep.
Okay.
On the one mountainside, but it was really far away. They're just like, look for little white dots. Okay, there's one. We think it might be a Dall sheep just because of where it was located.
Yeah.
And then you get to your boat launch. Oh, bald eagles everywhere.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, bald eagles everywhere. Crazy. But then we get to the kayak launch, and you're on this like it's gravel, right? It's not even like a boat launch that we think of, here in Pittsburgh, where there's places to like dock your boats and like you're literally just going off of like a gravel hill.
Yep.
But you're looking and you're like, oh, that's the glacier that we're kayaking to. Like it's super close, right? It's 3 miles away. It's that big. And you're like, how do you process that?
You don't.
Right? You don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, and our guide, Sam, was the greatest, like super fun, super chill, super informative and knowledgeable, and telling us all kinds of information about, the glacier and about the surrounding areas and whatnot. So, this kayak tour, you kayak up to the glacier. Now you are, as a kayak, you are allowed to go about a half a mile away from the glacier.
Okay.
And it's very mind-boggling because when we got to that half-mile point, it does not feel like a half a mile.
Feels like you're right under it.
That's how big it is.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Ayalik Glacier is about a mile wide. Yes. And like you can see it from start to finish, point A to point B.
Wow.
You're a half a mile away from it, which doesn't feel like a half a mile. But then you see boat tours. Boat tours are allowed to get within a quarter mile of it.
Okay.
And it's just like, oh my God, like we aren't even close to it.
No.
Like not at all.
Wow.
The reason being, you know, kayaks are half mile and boats are a quarter mile is because of all of the calving. So essentially when the ice cracks and breaks and it falls into the water, right, it creates waves, it creates ripples. So in a kayak, you can't paddle that fast to get away.
Yeah, right.
Because some of these can be really big.
Right.
And it was crazy too, because like you could hear them when we first docked, you could hear them. And then you would see it. I'm sorry, you would see it first. And then you would hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Like major delay.
Mm-hmm.
The closer you got, the more in sync everything got. And by the time you're half a mile and you see this, you know, everything is the way it's supposed to be. So the whole seeing and hearing and the type, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
There's chunks of ice floating around in the water.
Right.
Like you pick up a chunk and it's crystal clear. The water's floating. It like we watched an iceberg capsize. Now by, you know, an iceberg is an iceberg, but you know, this was by no means like Titanic size iceberg.
No,
right?
yeah. hopefully not.
Yeah, no. But they tell you like the touring company that we went through, like, don't go up to the icebergs because you never know if or when they're going to roll. So, you know, we watched this thing roll and it's just like, oh my gosh, like these are things that you see in movies or shows, not that you experience firsthand.
Right. Right.
But again, like, you know, not something that you get to do every day, like kayak to a glacier.
No,
so
that's for sure.
So, like, you know, we wanted to do as much as we could in the time that we had, but things that you know you don't get to do every day.
For sure.
So the crazy thing is that Ayalik Glacier was the other side of that Harding ice field. So Exit Glacier was one side where we did that hike to the top, and then Ayalik was the other side of it. So, you know, you're driving around the town of Seward to get from one side to the other. And I mean, it's like a 15-20 minute drive, but like that's like the ice field just like goes on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kenai was a lot of fun, just in the sense that like we got to kayak. The boat ride back, we did see a humpback whale. It was really cool. I was also dealing with some seasickness on the way.
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like when you're in the bay, right? The bay is calm water, but as soon as you hit that open ocean, it totally changes. And it's only like a half an hour time frame that you're on that open ocean, but man, did that mess with me. So, I mean, I did get to see it. Like, I saw all the animals. I saw the whale, but I was dealing with some seasickness along the way.
Oh, boy.
Never actually got sick. But it was funny because the one girl on the boat, she was working for the boat company, you know, super great, like helping me out, right? Ginger chews. Whatever it is about ginger and settling an upset stomach with emotions, I don't know, but it was fantastic, right? So she's telling me, like, if it ever gets to the point where you feel like you're gonna, you know, vomit, she's like, pick a side and aim for distance. I was like, oh my God.
Projectile it.
Cool.
Send it out. Send it out there.
What I want to think about.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, nope, it never got to that point, thankfully.
That's
But
good.
it's something funny to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Go for
yes.
distance.
For distance.
Yeah.
But we did. We saw a humpback whale. We did see more puffins along the way, more seals. So again, like things that you don't see every day. And then after Kenai was Wrangell St. Elias. So our last park was just as incredible as the rest. You're looking at the Wrangell mountain range and the St. Elias mountain range. Mm-hmm. But you can drive to Wrangell, but only to a certain point.
Okay.
Because then there is a footbridge that takes you across the river, and it takes you into this little town. And by little town, I mean like 100 people, little town of McCarthy. And then you go from McCarthy to Kennecott.
Okay.
McCarthy and Kennecott. So Kennecott is an old copper mill in the 10s, 20s, like super popular, super productive. These two guys came, they found this copper, in the ice, and essentially made this mill out of it.
That's crazy. Think about it.
Right? So Kennecott was the largest copper mill in North America at that time. Okay. And it is a 14-story freestanding mill. So like freestanding, it's not built into the hillside. Like it is on stilts.
Yeah.
Wow. On the various levels. Right. So it's really cool to see from the ground. They do tours that you can actually go into this mill. So we did the tour, and you're like, okay,
brave.
Like, yeah. Well, you walk up to the top and you work your way down. It's not like you're outside of it to get up to the top, and you get up to the top, and it's like, okay, like you can see how to get, from one side to the other, but then you look off to the left and like it's decrepit and falling apart, and you're like,
I want to go now.
Okay.
We're like, can we go now?
Yeah. And it's funny because like, people are like really nervous about it, and you're like, listen, the National Park Service has been through here. It has been updated. It has been,
tested,
this, that, and the other. Like right. It's safe, but just the idea, like you're walking on this walkway, like, oh, like that roof just collapsed in and it's still there. But it was really cool because you saw all the different levels of the mill and all the different processes to get the copper, right? And the various processes, because some are bigger chunks, some are smaller chunks, some is more pure than others, and how you deal with those different levels of the copper, so to speak. But throughout building this mill, they essentially built around the machinery. You get to one part where it like grinds up the copper and basically breaks the rock off the copper. And you go like 2 or 3 levels down, and your guide's talking to you, and she's like, this is the same machine. This is the original machine. It was like 3 times as big, 5 times as heavy. And you're like, oh my gosh, like how is this in here?
Right.
How did this thing not fall
through it? Yeah.
They built around it.
Wow.
It had become old, it had become outdated, but they put in the newer ones up above to make the process, more logical. They just built around it. It was never used anymore.
Yeah.
It sits in there.
It just sits there.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. If anybody's ever watched like Gold Rush on TV or anything like that on the Discovery Channel, I think it's Discovery, you have your system of separating it, you have your system of the wash tables and things like. It's very similar. The process is very similar. You're just dealing with copper instead of gold. So, there's like 2 or 3 levels of just wash tables in this mill that are separating out like the fine copper, from the dirt, the stone, the rock, whatever the case may be. And you progressively make your way down, and like at no point did I ever feel unsafe.
Okay.
It was just that mental image of like, there are parts of this building that are like literally falling apart. But it is maintained, it is safe, it is up to code. At no point did I ever not feel safe.
Yeah.
But just to see that process, just knowing that this was one of the biggest copper mills in North America. So Kennecott itself, it was a mill, it was a mine. So like the miners had their dorms, so to speak. There was a hospital, but it was a dry town. So there's no alcohol. So Kennecott, the mill, there's McCarthy. It's about 4 miles down the road. McCarthy is the Las Vegas.
Oh my gosh.
Alaska. It's the Sin City. So it's all of the bars and all of the restaurants. And by all, I mean like 5, right? It's a main street. There's a general store. There's 2 restaurants here. There's a hotel here. Like it's a town that exists, right? Like there's no police. There's essentially no laws. The 2 laws of McCarthy are don't instigate a fight without reason. So like, don't just randomly walk up to somebody that you don't like and like just punch them. And then don't make the locals mad. Those are essentially like the 2 laws of McCarthy. And it's very crazy because it is very isolated. It is its own world. But it's interesting because the locals are so friendly and so upbeat, and like this is their way of life. And the one restaurant we went to is called the Potato. We were there 3 times in our short stay because it was so good. The food was great. The drinks were great. But at like the one evening we were there, and our waitress is like, there's more people here at this restaurant right now than there are in the town of McCarthy. Like, yeah. Yeah. So it is very, very cool.
Yeah.
But Kennecott is a national historical site. So it is a part of the national park system. And there are all kinds of trails up through. There are other mines and mills as well that you can walk to that still exist. You cannot tour those ones, but you can at least still get to them. But the really cool part about Wrangell St. Elias was you could actually walk on one of the glaciers. So it's called Route Glacier, and you take a trail down to the glacier and you can actually like physically walk on this glacier. Which again, very like mind-boggling to say. I walked on a glacier.
On a glacier, yeah.
That was a thing, yeah. Because this particular glacier, like the ground is so sound, it is so solid, that it is, safe. Now that being said, there are cliffs to this glacier, so there is still safety involved. But in regards to just being able to walk on it, there's no issues there. Yeah. So we were walking on a glacier, and we saw the Kennecott Glacier was to our left, and then the rest of Root Glacier was to our right. And I believe the mountain that Kennecott Glacier runs along is Blackburn. And Blackburn is the fifth tallest mountain in North America. And it's one of those things. So like you're standing on Root Glacier and like Mount Blackburn is like right there, right? Again, massive. Okay. And when you get back to Kennecott, and you're looking at it, you take this tour and, Mount Blackburn, like take a guess how far away it is. I don't know, 5 miles, 6 miles, 27.
Yep.
27 miles away.
Yeah,
It's
just
like
seems
that
like you're right there. Yeah.
big. I like, and again, I like my descriptions, my pictures can't even do it justice.
No,
but
I'm
it's
sure.
like it feels like you're that close, like things are that big.
Yeah.
And it's very mind-boggling.
There's these things out there in the world that are just,
Bigger than us.
yeah, you just don't
Physically,
even realize.
but mentally, like emotionally, it's bigger than us.
Yeah.
So, to just be able to see that. And like, thankfully, when we were in Kenai and when we were in Wrangell, we did actually have like nice clear weather. So like it was sunny, blue skies, not a cloud in the sky, like gorgeous.
Yeah.
So we did end up with some good weather at the end of the day, at the end of the trip. So it was just like incredible, simply put.
Yeah.
Right. So, if anybody ever has the opportunity to do it, whether it's 1, whether it's 5, or it's all 8, like go do it.
Yep.
If you can't do them all, go back and do them, because there are things that we didn't get to do because of things out of our control, like, the road being closed in Denali. But again, a reason to go back, and maybe we do the other parks while we're up there. But it was as best as I can describe it, just like multiply it times 10. Like, wow. Yeah. And then, we drove back. It took us about 4 days to drive back, because we didn't stop anywhere. We did just kind of
Didn't stop 4 days.
I mean, like, okay, we stopped to sleep. Okay.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general, you just think about that 4 days to go from one side to the other,
Fair. Yeah. I guess, like, to me, after doing it 4 days doesn't sound like a long time.
4 days of driving is a long time, Liz.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I think our longest day was like 17 hours of driving. But like, to be fair, we took turns. It was like every 4 or 5 hours, and like that really helped.
Oh yeah.
Pass the time, but also just for our benefit, because we're looking at a 4-hour time difference, between Alaska and here.
Yeah.
And I think when you drive, it's so much better one way or the other, because you are gradually experiencing these time changes. Whereas if you fly, like when I went to Europe, I hit 6 hours all at once, and that was a disaster. It was a disaster. Yeah. I was working on a 10-hour time difference.
Yeah.
Like, whoa. But yeah, so I would highly recommend Alaska, if you are ever able to, because you will not regret it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there might be some low points if you expect to see Denali and you don't get to, but you make the best of
so many other opportunities there. Yeah.
And to be fair, you talk to the locals, and the locals are like 30% of the year is all you get, and it's hit or miss. So good luck.
Good luck. Hope you hit it right.
Yes. Yeah.
Like playing the lottery.
Pretty much. So that was our trip. I don't know where or when the next one is, because that was a lot. That was in the last 2 years. But also so worth it. Do it when you can. I would highly recommend, and you get a new appreciation too, I think, just for what's in the United States. Like, you don't have to go abroad to see things, they're right here.
Yeah.
I say in our backyard, but like,
6 days away, but
but it is, because like growing up, like the national parks weren't a thing. Like, you went to the beach, you went to Disney, you went to amusement parks, and I think the pandemic really helped boost the national parks, because once you were able to go back outside and essentially be around people again, they gave you something to do and something to experience. So
Yeah. It's
kind of,
natural scenes, natural just places.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think just with, our ability to travel, but our willingness to travel, our interest in traveling,
Yeah.
really, helped as well. And it makes it nice when you are with somebody who enjoys it as much as you do.
Mm-hmm.
So, you find that person or that group of people that you can do this with, and it just makes it that much better.
Yep.
So it was fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Every time you take these trips, you come back with these stories and you're just trying to describe. I know, like you keep saying, it's hard to describe it, but it gets your mind, your creative side flowing, and I'm trying to picture all these places. It's nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know where or when the next place is. Might need a break.
Take that one in. Take that one in first, at least. Yep.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So that was Liz's adventure, guys. One heck of a trip, sounds like. And like she said, you got the opportunity, go see the world. Go see the world. If that's your thing, obviously, if that's your thing. But there's places out there that are beyond description.
Mhm.
Beyond
Very
description.
much so.
Yep. So all right, let's close us off with a wonderful, hopefully, couple of nice, bright stories here. I have a good one that I'm going to share first. The other day, I had a kid that I coached in the past. So it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I coached this kid, and when he started out in lacrosse, he wasn't the best. He wasn't the best. Not the most athletic, not the most uh, however you want to say it. Not the best kid. Not athletically gifted without work or anything like that. And I had him on my team. He saw my passion for lacrosse and saw my influence and my values and everything, and he took it all in, and he just became the hardest worker. Would take in everything that I would say. I remember back to this day, his mother came up to me and was like, my son just talks about you all the time. After every practice, he's always saying, coach did this, coach said this, and this and that. And well, anyway, he the other day he reached out to me and he said, Coach, I just wanted to let you know that I committed to college yesterday, and I wanted you to be one of the first person that I told, one of the first that I told. He said, just thank you so much for everything. Without you, I wouldn't love lacrosse enough to make it to college. And for him to say that to me, again, just a young gentleman, just taking the time to appreciate and show the appreciation, the impact that I had on his life, it shocked me. I mean, it totally blew me away. I remember I was reading it while I was on a walk on my break, and I stopped in mid step and just was like, whoa. It was something. It was something, not only to hear that you had such an impact on somebody, but for them to show the appreciation and go out of their way to say something to you. It was insane. It was crazy. And it totally, it makes it all worth it, is the best way to put it. Knowing that what you're doing has an impact, at least on one person's life, in such a way. It just is, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And that's the thing, like, as a coach myself, but for soccer, you look at these kids and sometimes you wonder, like, did you make an impact? Did they learn something? And to have that reciprocated,
That reassurance that it did.
yes, it means the world.
It does.
Right?
It really
means
does.
the world. And it's different coming from the players than from the parents, because the parents like, oh my gosh, you did a great job. Like, thank you so much. But like when the kids see it and when the kids get it and understand it, totally different.
Yep.
Totally different. Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It really was. I mean, I've had, like you said, I've had parents say stuff in the past or this or that, but for a kid, 5 years down the road, still thinking about me, it's still recognizing the fact that I had an impact on his life, not just moving on with his life saying I was just my youth lacrosse coach. It's crazy to think about. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Fun. Yeah. That's really fun.
It was something. It was something. So that's my bright story. Crazy. So always show appreciation, guys. Show appreciation to people that have made an impact on your life. It means the world to them. It really does.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Liz, you have a bright story to share with us? So
I'm going to kind of generalize mine, because mine are from the trip, and they're all very similar, just with different people. So when we were up in Alaska and we were staying at, various campsites or campgrounds, everybody is just so willing and so interested in helping you out, right? So, Katmai, for example, we were at Bear Trails, and we were one of the first few people to arrive, and there was another gentleman with us, and retired, a little bit older, but still, like wanting to travel, wanting to experience things. And again, that amateur photography, like that's the big thing, I guess, when you retire, is that you want to do photography. But just the knowledge and insight that he shared with us, because he was from Canada. So, we're sitting in the community kitchen and we're just talking, and he's working on his photos and stuff. And, we're talking about all of these trails and places to go to in Canada, that he's familiar with. And he's sharing this information, and he's sharing this knowledge with us. And, I'm sitting there and I'm like, typing this all out on my notes and my phone, so that if we ever get back to Canada, like, that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
Right. But to the point where, like, he shared his email with us, and he's like, if you guys ever have any questions or need any suggestions or any kind of help, like, please reach out to me. Like, and his name was Martin, and he was like the greatest ever. And, it's one of those, like, just the generosity of sharing that knowledge of your home area, because how beautiful it is, how accessible it is, and other people want to experience it as well. And then we ran into another couple, again up there for photography, but she was a little bit more into it, with her various cameras, and she's talking to us and explaining different settings and different ways to take pictures, because we borrowed Brennan's dad's camera, we had my camera, and they were different, and just explaining, like, hey, like, mirrors are the better option when you buy cameras. And just like the amount of knowledge that I think we gained from all of these strangers, that essentially became acquaintances that you felt like could become friends that you've known forever. Because everybody that is doing this experience is there for the same reason, right? They want to be there, they want to experience it, but they want to share in it with somebody, whether it's the person they are with, or like Martin, he's up there by himself and he meets us, and like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known Martin my whole life.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And the same thing with the guides, on any of the excursions that we did, just willing and able to do anything and everything for you, answer all of your questions. If they didn't know the answers, they would find out for you. Like, that whole idea of just sharing knowledge was incredible to me. And I think part of it is because Alaska is so far away from the lower 48 states, and it's almost its own little world up there. You know, so it is very, very cool at the encounters we had, the people that we met, the stories they shared,
Right.
the information that they shared. So, I loved it. I soaked it in like a sponge. Like,
Yeah.
because all I wanted to do was learn. And
Yeah.
these people helped us.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
I generalized, but there's still so much.
Just the friendliness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just not being secluded and do your own thing. Just share your experiences and your knowledge with
Yes.
other people.
Yes. 100%.
Yep.
100%.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Absolutely. All righty. That'll do it. We had wedding talk. We had great stories from a trip to Alaska. We had some great bright stories. One heck of a good episode. Liz, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing your stories and your experiences. I always appreciate it.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Of
I
course.
feel like it's been a minute.
Yes, it certainly has been a little minute, but it's always a pleasure. It's always enjoyable hearing your experiences and your input. So, thank you again. Yep, you got it. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Like I said, another just awesome episode. So hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you are inspired by our talk. We've got new insert from the book that we're gonna do, and all this, and just hope that you take it all in, and you're inspired to do your own bright connections and your own nice gestures, and just do your best to be the best person that you can be, guys. Each and every day, little things can go a long way, as always.
We do.
Yep. All righty, guys. Take care. Have a wonderful and bright week. We'll see you next time.